guess maybe what I'm just shocked about is I never thought that the right wing swing back was going to be red pill women stuff. I didn't predict that.
What do you mean
I thought it
women
was going
stuff?
to be
Oh, you
different.
mean the kind of fresh and fit
Like
stuff?
hating, treat like all focused around like how to
Yeah.
kind of basically subjugate women and men.
Yeah.
And this kind of like what is quite literally, let's be honest, toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
I know that's a cringe term, but it is kind of what
It's
it is.
not a
though,
cringe
right?
term, is it?
It's
I've
just
never
what it
heard
is.
that.
Well, I mean, okay, people use it in a cringe way, but it is a thing. And that's what this is. I mean, it's basically like this is what they meant when they say toxic masculinity. It's
Yeah, it's
masculinity
literally
that in a way isn't really masculinity.
Yeah, and they always say that
it's
not
fake.
a thing. They always say that people are trying to get rid of masculinity. They always say that. It's really weird. Have you heard that sentiment before?
Oh yeah.
It's like, no, we're trying to get rid of you hating women.
I can see how, like, in some ways the kind of establishment or like not establishment, more like the kind of progressive side of life. So when you see, like, I don't know, companies and schools and stuff, I can see how there's maybe an argument in some ways that masculinity or being a man is kind of, isn't always portrayed in the best way. And like, for example, in schools, I heard something that's like, I can't remember the stat anymore. I think it was an American stat where it's like 60% of those who graduate high school are women or something. And that's like not good. That's really bad. Because like it should be, in theory, 50-50 if things are going well. That means things are equal.
It is.
But
I guess it could be worse. It seems
to be that there's a problem with.
That's an American thing.
But it seems like that seems like that is a bit of that's quite a big problem, that men are quite underrepresented when it comes to education and stuff. So what's going on there? Could it be the education system?
Could it be that men are just not as good as it naturally could be?
I don't know. I mean,
and if so, then it should be adapted, of course. But
if men are just not as good as academics, then that's just the way
it's not like it's not that they're more dumb. It's that maybe they it's not fit for them as much. The system.
The system, and so maybe some kind of reordering of,
but
I don't know, some kind of better. Yeah, because I guess when you think about how school is, it's kind of all about being studious, all about kind of sitting at the table, not moving. And I think women are a lot better at kind of like doing those
being subservient.
Not subservient. Like studying. Like, you've seen like a girl's notes.
Well, at that
like,
age as well, women
like,
are more mature, aren't they? And men are more adventurous.
Yeah, whereas men just want to go and kill everything and punch each other and say the N-word. Like we don't want to fucking sit at a table and fucking look at history all day.
Yeah, they want to watch porn.
So, I don't think really anyone does. But you look at I mean, if you see, like, Frankie, for example, her notes, like, for uni and for A-level, I've seen her, like, GCSE books even. I'm like, what the fuck? This is like a fucking textbook.
Damn.
Yeah, compared to my book. My book was, like, just a bunch of scribbles and bullshit. Like, I basically didn't really even care about my book.
Yeah.
And I think girls,
there is this thing about that, actually. There is,
they kind of like that.
Yeah, totally. There's like a TikTok meme I think I saw about it's someone writing a kind of how girls, they decorate their books sometimes, and they're like decorating a title for a subject, and then it reveals what the subject is, and it says the Holocaust in like bubble writing with loads of stars around it.
That's very funny.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's like it's
But they do take they seem more organised at that age. I've just noticed that. And have you noticed, this is random as well, but have you noticed that women's handwriting is better than men's generally?
Yeah, it always is.
That always pissed me off.
That's always true, actually.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing, because like you could make the argument men are dumber, which
I'm not going to say that at all.
In terms of intelligence, men are the same as women in terms of like the average IQ.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But actually, the interesting thing about men I've heard is that, like men exist more at the extremes as well. So like,
oh yes,
and of course, things like sexism, of course, play a part in this. But I mean, if you look at like, the majority of geniuses that exist in history, I think they are disproportionately male, even if you take things like sexism into account.
Yeah,
like it is still a disproportionate number.
The extremes, that makes sense.
But then also think of the literal dumbest humans ever. That
you're right.
Like like the literal just not even a conscious, not even like the intelligence of a shrimp. Just like these these people are just like, I'm just gonna do this and then do that and don't make sense. Like,
the intelligence of a shrimp.
That's always man, every single time.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's like women seem to be more consistent. I feel like that is just a general thing of like women being more consistent, and then like men just crazy and at the extremes. I almost feel like that's almost like
there must be no specific reason for that. I think that's just is a thing. Obviously it's just an observation, so maybe it's just a coincidence that it's been like that. But I've noticed actually, but it's like I've seen that on the internet and such, so it's not just a local thing. I've actually seen that. Yeah, that's really odd. Really interesting observation. I remember you said that a while ago.
I know. I've been hearing some interesting things recently, like pretty weird idea. What was it that this is a theory I heard. This is pretty out there. This is pretty wild, right?
Okay.
But so basically, there's this kind of like observation you can make, and I think the statistics line up with this, but I'd have to look into it more. But it's like, if you look at like progressive like, or not progressive, like, I mean insane like not even progressive, insane, delusional ideas. A lot of the people you'll see on these kind of TikToks, on these people, saying these things, are women.
Okay.
Or biologically female. Okay, why is that? Here's this theory I had. Right? This is wild, and I don't know how true this is, but it's very interesting. The idea is that the reason why women may be more likely to accept this ideology is because, so right now it's the dominant ideology, right? There's a theory that women, Jesus, this is weird, that women basically have been selected in the past to live under like patriarchy, just because that was the system that existed.
Yes, drowning the witches and such,
Therefore, women would be more quick to adopt the dominant worldview, such that they could basically survive in these like patriarchal societies.
Oh my god, that's
so
wild.
On the genetic side, that the idea that like maybe the reason why women, it seems like a lot of these people who adopt these kind of very extreme progressive views that you see on TikTok, a lot of them are women, because they're kind of adapting to the society.
Yeah, it's almost like they've been selected.
Weird. That's like some evolutionary psychology stuff.
Maybe selected out certain points, but adapted. Yeah.
But
so you're saying women have evolved. No, I know what you're saying. Actually,
it's a wild theory. And
it is.
I don't know. It almost says like, it sounds very bad to say.
Yeah.
But it's a very interesting idea. Like, I'm very interested in how things like evolution and and kind of selection play, and even genetics play a role in like your psychology and the way you think and the way you do things. Like, because I think maybe there is a kind of unspoken amount of like how much these things play a role in your life.
Yeah.
Like how the kind of societies that you live in and how that's selected for certain traits and how those traits led to certain people acting in certain It's quite interesting. Like,
that is really interesting.
I mean, this is a thing though, right? And hear this out. My mum will agree and I imagine your mum will agree as well. Okay. Like, who are the biggest problems? Who are the most
women
people the suffragettes who are fighting for women's rights?
Yeah.
The ones who were resisting women's liberation the most were women. Like, there were men, obviously a lot of men who are resisting too. That was saying,
I don't know about that.
Women, they don't know. But there are some of the most extreme pro-patriarchy people were women, which is insane.
I'll just take your word for that, or I'll just use it as I don't know if that's true or not. Is what I'm saying. Basically.
I mean, maybe also look into it better. But like, I mean, it's weird. And like, if you ask, like, I imagine if you ask your mum, like, what about like experiences she's had, like probably the most judgmental people, or the most kind of people that have kind of said things that would almost seem. It's almost like, I don't know. It's something strange, like women. I don't know. It's like it was like in the suffragette movement. I heard about this. That like women were kind of were almost holding, like you had one group of women obviously that wanted to progress and wanted women to have equal rights.
Yeah.
They had like another group of women, the more conservative women, who were actually like really staunchly opposed, and they were like, no, women, we're not meant to be like that.
Yeah, maybe it's just like internalized. But you're saying the whole point was that you were saying more women than men, or even if it's equal, that would be really surprising because it's against them.
I'd say,
but internalized discrimination,
I don't know about the
misogyny
numbers,
specifically.
but I would say the most. I wouldn't say specifically about the numbers. I don't know, but I would say the most extreme opposition you'd find, like the people that had the most extreme views in opposition to suffragettes, would probably be women.
Oh wow!
Not actually
that's
men,
interesting.
Which is weird. That is super weird. But
I
don't know. I don't know. I think the
internalized discrimination plays a big part in that.
Yeah, I bet. And to be fair, there might be a side of it I was thinking about. Like, say you're a woman, you've lived your whole life as a kind of under a very harsh patriarchy, or maybe not too harsh, but pretty harsh. You're basically a second-class citizen, and then all of a sudden you have these women who are coming up, and they're saying, "We want to vote. We want to do this."
It's like you feel like you've been cheated out a bit, and you can't.
You feel
it's like a trauma response.
Yeah, it might be a kind of resentment thing where it's like I had to deal with X, Y, and Z, therefore you have to deal with it as well.
Yeah.
It's almost like the bully. It's like the person who gets bullied and they bully. So then it could be a part of that. Maybe
that's interesting.
That could be maybe a big part in something like that. But I don't know. It's kind of sad to hear that. 'Cause it's like, it's like, man, come on, how could you not side with your own?
I have heard about the women not siding with themselves, but I didn't know it was that much of a thing. I just knew that there was like a few.
I know it was a pretty big thing, like a lot of women, women that were against women's liberation. It was quite a big. It sounds insane, but man,
no, it's
interesting. The gender one is interesting. How
maybe so it's either they felt like they couldn't come to terms with the fact that this whole time they've been really missing out, and they just so deeply accepted it, and they didn't want to accept that it could be better, and they've already wasted their whole life being subservient. Maybe it was that.
Yeah, and I guess resentful of what they're going to have, and it's like I had to do this.
Yeah, maybe.
To be honest, my great grandma was a bit of a pain to my grandma, grandmother, she was. Great grandma was pretty horrible to her at times, and I think a side of it was resentment that my great grandma was extremely poor, came from a family of 9, 11 originally, 2 of them died, 9 of them, you're poor, I think they were Welsh, poor, basically they farmed a little bit to have some extra food, they had no money, and growing up my grandma had no money, my great grandma barely had a very small job, didn't make much.
Yeah.
And then, my grandma grows up, finds my grandpa, they get pretty successful. They get quite a bit of money. They get all over the world and stuff,
Yeah.
And she's had this, she had a really great life. Loads, all sorts of, proper kind of, the nuclear family, everything perfect,
Yeah.
And it's interesting, instead of being happy, instead of being like, wow, thank God my daughter had a really great, everything is really good for my daughter. Thank gosh, everything. She's got everything she could possibly want. She traveled all over the world. No, she was resentful of her. And that was quite shocking. So I can't imagine being resentful of your own child.
Yeah, neither.
Surely you'd just be cheering them on, wouldn't you? Surely you'd just be like, but I guess, I don't know, it must just be a side of it. It's like, that's what I had to deal with, therefore you have to deal with it too. Which...
Yeah, well, that's such a bad mindset.
It's a very...
God, you've got to be so bitter about it, but not... It's just such a negative way.
It's a bitter, resentful mindset, and there's nothing I find more kind of gross than resentment.
That's disgusting. It's jealousy.
It's just kind of
it's envy, wasn't it? What's the ContraPoints? You define them differently.
Yeah,
It's Envy.
Yeah, I've heard that's. People say that's like the best ContraPoints video. Actually, I think Envy.
Oh really? Yeah, that's really good one. I love that one.
I think interestingly, she kind of goes at her own side quite a bit, doesn't she? Actually, in that one as well, which was quite interesting. What? I think she kind of goes at her own like the left. She kind of goes at the left quite a lot in that video as well.
Okay. Yeah, I guess so.
So she, it seemed like quite an interesting video. But yeah, like I think that is a really, it's kind of things that I think this is also sort of the abortion argument, which is related to this too.
Yeah,
that's my theory. I think there is also another resentment there, where it's like you have all these women that had babies. You had to have babies, or
they had to, and they didn't.
Maybe not necessarily had babies because they were raped or because they just got pregnant and didn't have access to abortion, but maybe they just had a family, maybe a bit too early, and they got stuck up in the young wife with families basically spends all day just looking after babies and never really got to go anywhere or do anything, or and there's a kind of existential,
the same thing. They're resentful
depression
of you. And if I went through,
maybe there was a kind of like, I had my baby, I had to be responsible. Now you have to be responsible.
Yeah, because they don't want to come to terms with the fact that
no matter the consequences, no matter the fact that it might be detrimental to basically everyone in the country. No, you have to have your baby because I did that and I struggled with that, so therefore you have to struggle with that.
Oh my god.
It's kind of, you get this weird. You see it if you look at any comment section of a kind of anti-abortion thing. You'll always find the same things. Responsibilities. Now these women will be responsible for their actions. Now these women won't hook up and be gross and first of all, guys, it takes two to tussle, right? It takes two to tussle.
And it leads back to people wanting to control women as well. Now women will have to this and that. I'm controlling them. Obviously, sick bastards.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess and that's the kind of thing. When I was trying to think of my archetypes of the people that are anti-abortion, so I really do think it is a really big. Like I think it's so much bigger than even it seems.